Awesome to be in Nicola's territory, home ground as well of Selwyn, and great to be amongst farmers. They are the most resilient, positive people on earth. They've been through the absolute mill, and it's great to get a sense that they're feeling like we're coming out the other side, and we're seeing that with rising farmer confidence and the outlook for dairy, red meat and wool as well. So awesome to be here, real privilege to be here, hang out with some amazing New Zealanders. With that, happy to take questions.
Prime Minister, last week in ACT, he said that farmers were irate and furious with National over its Paris Agreement climate commitments. Is that the vibe you're getting here today?
Not at all. I was in the Wanaka AMP show a week or so ago. I'm here today. Farmers tell me up and down this country they do not want us. They know that actually large multinational companies and competitor countries to New Zealand would love nothing more to use that as an excuse to kick us off their shelves across the world, and that's not going to happen. We're not punishing farmers. We want to make sure that we have agriculture pumping. We want the economy growing, and I'm going to put nothing at risk that puts New Zealand's national interest at risk, and our interest is to see agriculture doing well. I'm not punishing our farmers.
There's obviously some discord amongst your coalition partners around this agreement, though.
Well, parties will have different positions. They can take those to the election in 2026, but all three parties in the coalition government signed up for our position, and they get it because the farmers that I talk to here and across this country know very clearly that if we were to come out of an international agreement like that, that is not in our national interest. That would actually hurt us economically tremendously and punish our farmers, and I'm not up for any of that.
Prime Minister, there are thousands of New Zealanders whose submissions on the Treaty Principles Bill won't be read by the Select Committee, won't be entered into the public record because of resourcing issues, basically. What's your message to them, the people that spent a lot of time making submissions that will essentially never exist in the public eye?
Well, I'll just say to you, I think it's ultimately a decision for Parliament and for the Select Committee chairs and the Select Committee members to make. The reality is, we wanted that bill to come back to the House to be able to vote it down. Ultimately, Labor and the Greens have got to determine whether they want to just carry on with it through a Select Committee process, or they want to actually end the bill. And so that's ultimately up for them, but it's a decision really for Parliament and for the Select Committee.
Do you think it's acceptable, though, in terms of the democratic process, if you have people who are taking the time to submit, and those submissions, as I say, will never enter the public record? Well,
there's been a large number of record submissions, as you know. I think the Select Committee's on the very best it can to make sure it hears the sentiments expressed on all sides of that debate. But now it's time to move on, and so it's up to the committee, and it's frankly up to Labor and the Greens as to whether they want to extend the process and play politics, or whether they actually want to end the bill. And we're ready to vote the bill down.
How soon are you hoping to announce measures to combat the meth surge?
Well, again, what we've seen, and the data came out last week, was that we've seen a doubling of meth reporting and wastewater across New Zealand. There's three parts to that, and I've asked the ministers, Goldsmith, Mitchell and Ducey to get them to think about, is there anything else we can sharpen up? But the first point I'd make to you very clearly is that drugs in New Zealand are 15 times more expensive than they are in North America. And so we are now seeing international global drug cartels come into the Pacific, including Australia and New Zealand, because the pricing is very attractive. And as a result, that requires us to work really tightly with other countries, particularly through the Pacific, on strengthening our defences and our customs and our borders. We need to, secondly, continue to disrupt the distribution of drugs in New Zealand. That's why we're smashing up the gangs, and I make no apology for doing so. And the third piece is we obviously need to support addicts in New Zealand as well. So I'm going to let the ministers take a bit of time to understand exactly what the data is telling us, understand the data, because it is a bit of a shift from what we have been seeing. It's been fairly stable-ish over the last wee while. If there's anything we need to sharpen up, we will.
Prime Minister, can I get your reaction to Auckland Council's decision on Eden Park, and is this something the government is thinking about funding?
Well, I'll tell you, first and foremost, that's a decision for Aucklanders and Auckland Council, and the government hasn't received a proposal, but I'd just say to you, I think it's a pretty high bar for government funding, given that there's a lot of other things that we need to get done in this country, particularly around schools and hospitals and roading, where I think government money might be better deployed. I'd just say to Auckland Council, the one thing I'd encourage them to do is take some of the constraints off the events that can be held at Eden Park, for example. We've got a number of concerts, we've got a number of other events that could be used, so let's get more things done, and let's say yes to a lot more stuff and no to a lot less stuff.
Do you think that this will actually eventuate, considering that this debate has been going on for decades?
Well, again, it's a decision for Auckland and for Auckland Council, but the government's involvement it's pretty high bar for us to get involved in something like that. But I think there's things across the country, across our key stadium, where we should be liberalising the laws, opening things up and getting more activity happening that drives local economy as well.
Why has the government intervened specifically in Wellington Water?
Oh, look, Wellington Water's been an absolute shambles for some time, and they've really got an opportunity between now and the 1st of September to make sure they come forward with a really good water plan and actually the active management of those 3 water assets. And so we really want to support them to make sure that they do well. I mean, obviously, it's been disappointing to see the performance of Wellington Water. The Minister's been watching it very closely. I'm sure he'll have more to say about it shortly. But for us right now, we want to make sure that they're going forward to get water in Wellington sorted once and for all. And they've got to make sure they get a submission together by the 1st of September.
Do you think that the chair should resign from Wellington Water?
Those decisions for Wellington. I'm just saying to you, it's been a shambles. It hasn't been well managed, as we've seen in Wellington. And we know that there's local water done well. There are a series of models that are available to those assets to be managed properly. It's important that they are. The local government minister Watts will be looking at it very closely.
Charities in South Auckland say tougher rules around emergency housing is contributing to rising homelessness. What's your response to that?
Well, I just say this was a Labour Party debacle. This was an absolute shameful record on housing across the board from the previous administration. When we came to government, there was 3,200 families in motel accommodation across New Zealand. Utterly unacceptable, many of them raising families and children. Today we've got it down, I think, below 590 families. We have worked really hard to make sure that we talk to each and every one of those families, and we've managed to get 80% of those families into proper homes and houses through social housing wait lists, through KO or through community housing providers. And most importantly, we've taken 2,000 kids out of motels and put them into proper homes. So, Labor can, that is a shameful record after 6 years where they didn't do a single thing. And from the 1st of April, we put our teams to work, we put our agencies to work, we spoke to those individual families, and we got them proper housing. And I'm very proud of that.
Do you know how many applications for emergency housing have been declined this year to date?
I don't have those numbers with me, but I just say to you that anyone who needs assistance on housing, our government is open to support them. But what I'm proud about is that we have taken 2,000 kids out of motels and put them into houses, and that's something that Labor never did for a party that supposedly cared about people and didn't actually look after their housing needs. We've done that job.
Have you had any communication with Jim Glennon regarding his build-up of NZ shares or his board control?
No, I don't know.
Are you aware of any conversations between Glennon and anyone else in the National Party caucus?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Any media policy?
No.
Are you worried about the trade war that is erupting around the world at the moment as a result of Trump's tariffs, most recently on cars?
Yeah, I just say to everybody, we're not going to do a running commentary on the President's comments each and every day, and his comments and actually what gets actually implemented as detail. We need to actually stay calm and actually see the detail. What we know is that tariffs is not good for the global economy. Tariffs for a country like New Zealand, we've been advocating for many decades now that actually the free movement of goods and services across the world is a good thing. We have very strong relationships with the current administration. I've spoken to President Trump. Todd has spoken to Trade Representative Greer. We've had Winston Peters has been sitting down with Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz, and also Judith Collins has spoken to Pete Hegseth as well. So let's stay calm. Let's work through the detail. Let's see whether they're universal, whether they're specific, and work our way through it. I'd also just point out that New Zealand has grown its trade with the US really strongly in recent years, even when we've dealt with things like tariffs and steel, in particular, and aluminium for us, and then without having a free trade agreement. And so, New Zealand's trade is complementary. It's actually well balanced, and we fill a lot of gaps in the US marketplace. And those are the points that Todd's made, and our officials have been making for the last couple of months to the officials in the US administration.
Just on that, there have been some suggestions that the Americans might look at GST as a tariff. I know the Trade Minister made some comments this week that it's non-discriminatory in nature. It's not about external nations. Can you or the Minister say anything about that? Are you confident the Americans understand how our GST system works?
Well, again, we have as good a relationships as we've been able to form at a leader-to-leader level and in a senior ministerial level. Our officials have been there talking to the administration's officials. You're right, GST is non-discriminatory. We don't leverage it differently on overseas companies versus domestic firms as well in New Zealand or consumers. So, I don't think that will be a big issue for us. But the point is, I also just asked everyone, we don't react to comment. What we react to is detail, and when things are actually getting implemented, that's the point that we will we'll see exactly where we are.
Have you seen Helen Clark's criticism of the Eden Park decision?
I see Helen Clark coming out on lots of different things most days of the week. She seems to be running Labour Party foreign policy at the moment. But I'd just say to you is that Eden Park needs to open up, and it needs to have a hell of a lot more events happening, and that's something that I've been talking about from the beginning of the year. So let's get more concerts going. Let's get more events into Eden Park. Let's make sure that we get the local economy pumping and moving forward. But let's do it across the country as well.
She's called it short-sighted and said a downtown venue would be a better long-term option. Do you have any view on that?
Well, I'm not going to get into the stadium debate. That's a decision, as I said before, for Auckland Council and for Aucklanders. But I don't think Helen Clark's comments are, she's entitled to her views as a private citizen, as is everybody in New Zealand. But my view is let's get more things happening at Eden Park immediately.
Your message for King Charles?
Yeah, just hope he really recovers well. I had a wonderful conversation with King Charles up in Samoa. We had a wonderful meeting. I'm hoping I get to see him soon and shortly, but I just want to wish him well from all New Zealanders to say our thoughts and prayers are with you, and we wish you a speedy recovery and good luck with the treatment.
Awesome, guys. We're going to leave it.
Thank you, team. Appreciate it.